You're muted, Chris. Chris, you're muted.
There we go.
There we
go. Sorry. All right. So again, my name is Chris Herzog. I'm the lead instructor for Dallas CERT, and that's the Community Emergency Response Training. Every city in America should have these training teams, but sadly, not every city does. I work under the Office of Emergency Management in Dallas. And so far, before I retired, I was a captain with American Airlines. And as much as I'm sure you would want the people up in the cockpit to be prepared for anything that might happen on your flight, after I retired, my wife signed me up to take a CERT class, which means you're basically being prepared for things that could go wrong other than at 35,000 feet, right? You're down here on Earth. So when things go wrong, you want to make sure you know what to do and you're better prepared to get through whatever challenges you may encounter. So that's the type of stuff we teach in CERT, and we'll cover that more and more as we go through it this evening. Okay, so why should we be prepared? Well, emergency resources may be limited. So whether it's, we live here in Tornado Alley, whether it's a tornado or a flood or terrorism, whatever it is, our city and most cities are not staffed up, nor do they have the resources to be there for everyone in the city. It's meant for just at the very beginning of a disaster. We would be tax broke if we tried to have as much staff and resources to be able to manage any major disaster throughout a city the size of Dallas. So you want to make sure that you can help take care of yourself. We want you to be more self-reliant and self-sufficient as possible. And you want to help you to become better prepared for your loved ones and those around you to survive or help mitigate any unnecessary pain and suffering. Sadly, things happen. And when they do, you sure would like to be able to look at yourself in the mirror and say, well, at least we were prepared for it. We did everything we could to help ourselves and help those around us. And then you're not so anxious and so fearful of things that could go wrong, whether you're afraid of terrorism or you're afraid of, I don't know, another pandemic, or you're afraid of tornadoes or whatever. What would happen if? Well, we would help teach you those classes so that way you'd be better prepared to know what you should be doing. You practiced it and you're prepared for it. So when things like that happen, you have a better chance of coming out the other end and being more of a responder than maybe a victim. We want to minimize the number of victims we have during any major disaster. So it's always good to hope for the best, by all means, but you want to kind of expect the worst. And if you expect the worst, then you prepare for the worst. So being prepared is the key to lessening the impact of a disaster. So we want our community, our city, to be more resilient whenever there's a problem. We want to bounce back quickly as a community. So that's what we want to help prepare to do. Now, I've been an instructor in CERT for maybe 12, 13 years, and I've personally trained about 4,300 residents here in Dallas thus far through the CERT program. And I would hope to think that that sounds like a lot, but for a city this size, that's just a scratch in the surface, really. So we need a lot more people to consider taking these type courses and being prepared for being a responsible and trying to be as self-reliant as we can, okay, and be able to take what comes our way. All right, because you'll be ready for it. It's not gonna it may surprise you when it happens, but as soon as you do, you'll be able to recognize it. You'll be able to know what your plan is. And we're going to talk to you about developing a plan and answer your questions if you have any questions. And anytime this evening, if you do have questions, just go ahead and just raise your hand, electronically through, and I'll be more than happy to pause and answer your questions as we get to it. Okay. All right. So preparing is simple. So first is getting informed. The fact that you're here tonight is a really good step, meaning you want more information. The next thing you want to do is to make a plan. So you want to have a plan in the event of, let's say, a tornado hits your neighborhood. Do you have a plan on what you're going to do? Worst case, what if a tornado hits your home? Okay. Now, do you have a room you're planning on going into, a sheltered room where you're going to go into, you think is the safest part of your house? Okay. So let's assume it's in the evening, you're watching football and tornado sirens go off and tornado comes through your neighborhood and hits your house and you find yourself in rubble. And how are they going to find you in the middle of the night? Because the electricity is going to go out during a tornado. So then it's going to be dark and your neighbors could be in as bad a shape as you are. So whenever help arrives, how are they going to find you? When you ran into the laundry room or into the bathroom or whatever room you chose, did you take a flashlight with you so you could shine a flashlight to draw people's attention? Or during the daylight time, do you have a whistle? Because just calling out for help, your voice is going to give out on you in a very short amount of time. But if you have a whistle, you can blow a whistle and draw people's attention. Because when help arrives and they look at a dark neighborhood, where are they going to begin? They could be relatively close to you, but they don't know that. But if you had a whistle or some way of getting attention, they could then get to you and rescue you so much quicker, which would, again, I think we'd all rather be rescued than just lay there and just suffer, right? So just have a plan. And then what are you going to do if other family members are not at home, but you are, let's say, and now they're trying to get in touch with you, or they want to come home and they can't because your neighborhood's been hit with a tornado? Where are they supposed to meet up? Because again, the electricity is going to fail. More than likely, the cell towers will be overloaded and your cell phones probably won't work for a while. So then where are you and your loved ones? How are they going to meet up? So you want to go in and pick a rally point now on where you're going to meet. If there's a disaster and we can't get into our neighborhood, if we can't get into our home, let's all agree to meet and then pick a place. Now, don't pick a place 100 yards away, because more likely, if it's too close, it could be in the same situation as you are in your structure. So something that everyone would know to go to, a local YMCA, a gym, a church, or wherever. And that way you have a place to find one another, and then you can make a plan and continue on from that point too. Okay. So again, I'm just scratching the surface. The CERT program that we'd hope you would take is a 20-hour course. And again, I'm just hoping to perk your interest. So that way, by the end of this evening, you're all going to rush to the website and sign up. So I'm looking for that. Okay. You should also assemble a disaster kit or a go kit. How many of you ever heard of a go bag? Those type things would mean that you would have everything you would need in the event something bad happened. You could live out of your go bag for at least 3 days. Food, water, medicine, clothing, whatever you would need, minimum, bare minimum too. But you could take care of yourself for 3 days without any assistance from anyone. It should already be packed and in your bag. You would have one at home and one in your car. And if you share a car, then you need to have more than one, or you always take your bag with you, because you don't want to leave the house without your bag. If no one drives your car but you could leave your go bag in your car, and that way you would only have to build one. Now, in the past, those go bags used to be called a 72-hour bag or 72-hour kit. Well, that was back years ago where the government would say you need to take care of yourself for at least 3 days before you expect any help to arrive. Then in 2015, they came out with a recommendation that you really should have about 2 weeks worth of supplies in your home, because they found out with some of the major disasters like Katrina and others that it takes longer than they thought for help to arrive. So now 2 weeks would be in your bag, but in your kit at home, you should have at least 2 weeks worth of food, water, medicine to get by before any help could arrive. And so just start thinking of those as goals. Now that doesn't mean you can just run out and make this happen overnight, but that's one of the goals that you want to achieve. Okay. Then you want to maintain your plan in your kits, because within your go bag, you'd also have a change of clothes. In the summertime, you would have a different set of clothes in there than you would in the wintertime. And then you'll probably have some food and snacks in there. So you don't want to eat something that's been in your bag for 2 or 3 years. So go ahead and change out those protein bars or whatever food you put in there, change it out and maintain it once or twice during the year. And then be sure and plan on taking care of any special needs, whether any have special needs people living in your home, or you have the elderly or friends or neighbors. Think of what it would take to pack a go bag for them so they have what they need. Okay. Now, all this stuff that I just covered, that's all throughout CERT, CERT. And again, to sign up for the class, we have one coming up in October. You just go to DallasCert.com and enroll. And I'm sure you won't have any complaints from it. I mean, it's 3 consecutive Saturdays. Let's talk about the different types of disasters in our area, because if I was teaching this class up in New York, it would be different than some of the content that I'm teaching down here in the South, especially in Tornado Alley. So we've had our troubles with flooding here in Dallas area. We had winter storms. I don't know how many of you lost your electricity several years ago when we had that big winter storm. If you did lose electricity, did you enjoy it? Did you wish you didn't lose electricity? Hopefully not too much pain and suffering, but if it was. So once you've gone through that, what would you like to have happened after that? Did you then think about getting a portable generator? Most people thought about it, wish they had one, but after the electricity came back on, what do most people do? They move on and with their lives and say, well, I'm sure glad the electricity came back on. That's not going to happen again. Well, of course it's going to happen again. And it's going to happen more often. Our grid, whether it's here in Texas or in the United States, is weaker and in worse shape than it was last year and the year before. Okay, they're not improving it. It's only getting older and worse. Okay, they haven't put any budget money towards making it better and building power plants and such. So if you found you didn't like going without electricity, don't think it's not going to happen again. It's going to. So start planning now on what it would take. And that's one of the more difficult questions and problems to solve, is generating your own electricity. But we take it slow and very deliberate and answer all your questions when you take the class, because you may only want to have just a portable battery backup and just keep enough electricity for one light and charge your phone or something. Other people want their whole house powered. So there's a wide range of amount of electricity you want to generate, and you generate it differently, whether it's from a gas generator, propane, whether it's solar, different ways to generate it. And we were help to walk you through those steps and give you examples on what might best be for you.
Hey, Chris.
Yes.
I have a question that came up in the chat. Is the CERT class free, or is there a cost?
It is, you've already paid for it with your taxes, so it's paid for with a FEMA grant. And so there is no charge to take the course at all. And it's normally held on Saturdays from 8 to 5 at the Dallas Fire and Rescue Station on Dolphin Road, where the firemen train. And everyone who takes it just can't get enough of it, and they end up participating more in it. And then you have monthly meetings in different parts of the city that you can go and meet your neighbors who have taken CERT also, and take advanced courses if you wish. And all the advanced courses are free of charge. So you meet a lot of people, you learn a lot of good stuff, a lot of new skills. The biggest skill that you'll learn, that people find it hard to believe, that just by taking the one course, you'll be able to, if someone's dying at your feet, we teach you how to diagnose what they're dying from, to treat what they're dying from to save their life, and then move on to the next one in 60 seconds or less in the dark. So that way, again, it's mass casualty. So we're assuming you're in a, like Home Depot, or you're at a concert or a theater and something bad happens. And now there's all these injured and dying people all around you. We teach you to be in that environment. And what should I do that you're the lucky one that's not injured, and yet everyone around you is? What should I do? Because if I help this person, then this person over here may die. If I help this one over there may die. So we teach you how to go about triaging, it's called, quickly. And when we say quick, we mean 60 seconds or less. And that's for people who have no medical background, no training whatsoever. And that's where we start from. Okay.
Wow, you said a lot right there, Chris. That's amazing. Everyone should take advantage of that. That's great. Thank you for sharing that part.
You bet. And then you think about the different disease outbreaks. Okay, well, anyone remember this picture? If you do,
before you move on, Chris, another question came up. Mary, will you go ahead and state your question there?
What were you asking, Ms. Annie?
You said you had a question or
Oh,
comment?
yes, I was making a comment to see if Chris had heard this, but I heard on the news where large insurance companies, and a few were mentioned, are pulling out of areas or states like California, and are no longer covering floods or other disasters, because I guess they're going into broke house covering all these major things that are happening. Do you have anything on that, Chris? Any comments, opinions?
I've heard those rumors. I have not seen anything definitive that I would say, yes, I know that's happening to be true, but
Maybe not happening in Texas.
Yeah,
yet?
Yeah, it's not happening in Texas that I'm aware of at all. No.
Okay.
But these large problems, whether it's hurricanes, tornadoes, floodings, dam breaks, whatever, you can imagine the amount of money outlaid to reimburse people for all their claims.
Oh, absolutely.
Could bankrupt insurance companies.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, if it's a big enough disaster, it can bankrupt them. And sadly, now we have to start thinking of war.
Absolutely.
Now, could a war bankrupt insurance companies? Absolutely. We could bankrupt a nation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Thank you.
That's a good question to ask. Next month we have our insurance workshop. So, Marianne, definitely remember to ask our insurance
specialist. Definitely. I'll be putting some information out on that at later before we end. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you,
Okay.
Annie.
All right. So we have an outbreak of, if you remember when Ebola broke here in Dallas area, the first victim was Thomas Duncan. Sadly, he passed. And if you remember the story, how quickly we came close to quarantining the Dallas area because it was difficult. It's so contagious and so deadly. They had trouble getting their hands wrapped around that disaster at first. And then they end up, the two nurses that caught Ebola one was flown back to Atlanta, I believe, to the CDC. Another one was flown back to Virginia to be treated. And that way, they were hoping Dallas could get their act together and keep from Ebola spreading in a major metropolitan area. Now, you realize that DFW Airport is an international airport. We have aircraft arriving from all over the world. So even though if there's a major, terrible pandemic of some kind going on in some other continent, in Asia, in India, in Africa, and we're one flight away from someone getting off an airplane and bringing that to us. And once it's here, it's here. So it's great to have a big airport where we can fly around the world. However, when it's an international airport, that means they don't stop anywhere first. They can come directly here from most any destination in the world. Okay. So it's sad, but it can happen. Then we had this COVID-19 problem. And don't think that we may never have another pandemic again. Start thinking of what you learned from this last pandemic and what you might do different and how you could be better prepared for the next one. Okay. Then you think about a heat wave. Well, it's been a hot summer for sure. What would you do different in order to be better prepared? Again, if you lost electricity, do you have a plan in order to stay cool in your house? Whether it's just having your own electricity so you can keep your fans going or your air conditioners going, or do you have somewhere to go? So, and then the big one that we devote a lot of time to is tornadoes, because they can be extremely deadly and affect a large area of our city. Then also now we need to add blackouts more now because of how our grid is becoming more and more unreliable, actually. And don't think just because you live in a city that it's not your problem to worry about. It is if you want to have electricity that you can depend on, you need to start having a plan on what you're going to do when the electricity goes out, because it's hard to invent a plan in the dark, mentally and figuratively and actually. So think of what you're going to do when the power goes out. What's your plan for you and your loved one, you and your family? And what if there's a hazardous material spill, whether it's from an 18-wheeler that was transporting hazardous material or a train derailment? Remember, North Texas is the chemical capital of America. There's more chemicals that are being distributed, sold, manufactured, and sold throughout North Texas than anywhere else in the United States. More than Louisiana, more than Houston area. So all it takes is either an accidental spill, and then we got a cloud of deadly material floating through our neighborhoods. You need to have a plan. And we cover that. So how many of you know that we have nuclear power that we get here in Dallas? And if there's a nuclear power plant accident, what's your plan? Then there's obviously tornadoes, there's floods, and terrorism. Now, if you didn't know, we have a nuclear power plant. It's about 65 miles to the southwest of us, down at Comanche Peak Power Plant. And it's pretty old. And if they had an accident with an average 10-mile-an-hour wind, it would take about 6 hours for the nuclear material to reach DFW. If there was an accident, it gets on the news and they tell everyone, you need to, what would you do? In fact, I'll fill it. What would you do if you found out that in 6 hours, DFW is going to be covered with nuclear material through the wind? What would you do? Well, would you try to leave town? Just think how many, you have what, 7.9 million people trying to leave Dallas. I think the roads get kind of full. So we teach you on what to do when these things occur and when you hear about it. So again, you have a personal plan, which would be for you when you're at home. Then you need to have one when you're at work or away from home, because it would be a different plan. And then for your entire family, they need to have a plan. It includes everyone in your household. And then people always seem to forget their pets. You got to have a plan for them too, to take care of them. And remember, if you're thinking you're just going to go to the nearest shelter, I don't know if you know that or not, but you don't get to take your pets into the shelter. They won't permit that. They have to stay on the outside. And for them to take them on the outside, they have to be in a carrier. Okay. And then you have to bring their own food and water. You have to take care of them. They're not going to take care of them for you. And that'd be outside the shelter. So you're going to be going in and out of the shelter to see your pet if you had a pet, okay, at a shelter. There's classes you can take. We teach you all about that. And then what would you do at your workplace? If all of a sudden, whether it's a tornado or a flood or terrorism, what are you going to do at your workplace in the event of, and then fill in the blank. And throughout the course, everyone comes up, well, what about this? Well, what about that? Well, that's what the class is all about, answering all your questions. No matter what you come up with, we'll help you have a plan. Then help you to educate your coworkers on what you would do so you can work together, because you'd be much better and much more effective working together as a team than trying to do everything all by yourself. And again, that's what CERT stands for, is Community Emergency Response Team. Okay. So you need to plan to survive on your own for at least 72 hours minimum. That'd be your go bag. You want to identify your shelter in place location. Now, shelter in place location is different than the room you're using or thinking of using for your tornado room. So if they said there's a tornado, you probably have a room in mind that you're going to go to, right? That's a strong room that would stand the wind. A shelter in place room has nothing to do with the strength of the room or anything about wind. We want to get you into a room where you be in a hermetically sealed, airtight room that no outside air, and whether it's from the outside of the house or just outside the room, can even make it into that room. So we're assuming there's some kind of poison in the air and we're trying to survive. So you'd go into your bathroom or a small room or whatever, and you would put up plastic around any windows, put up plastic over the door. After you entered the room, close the door, put plastic over the door, even put plastic over all your air vents, put plastic over all of your lights, because air comes in from your attic through the light fixture. You even have to tape up the electrical fixtures, because where you stick your electrical plug in, there's air that's coming through there too. So we would be watching those videos and teaching you what room to pick to shelter in place. So when you hear that on the news, shelter in place, that doesn't mean just go inside. That means you need to go inside, and if it's an airborne threat, you need to go ahead and seal yourself up into a room that's airtight. Now, you're not going to be in it very long, maybe 20 minutes, maybe 2 hours at the most. So it's not like you're going to be in there a long time, because the atmosphere is huge. I'm a meteorologist in addition to being a pilot. So this poison is going to dissipate fairly quickly, but it doesn't take but 1 or 2 deep breaths of poison to ruin your life, right? So you need to be able to get someplace safe quickly. So we teach you to do that in your home or apartment, to get into that room and seal it up in 10 minutes or less. And then you wait in there until you get the all clear from a radio that you have already in there to let you know it's safe to come out. You may need to know any evacuation routes, especially if you're near the coast, if we're worried about hurricanes. And then you want to have a personal and business support network. So who are you going to call on when you need help? and who will be calling you when they need help, and actually have meetings if you can to visit with one another, so you be there. Again, we do so much better as a team than we're trying to do everything by ourselves. And then plan for services to be unavailable. All city services will be planned for them to be unavailable, not just electricity, but police and fire and 911, all these things during a big disaster, they will be overwhelmed and they will not be available to you. So we teach you how to to set up a field hospital, take care of you and your loved ones for 6 hours to 6 days. In a big nationwide disaster or statewide disaster, it could be days before any, quote, professionals arrive to help. So we're trying to turn in as many residents into amateur responders, amateur EMTs, so we can take care of each other until the pros arrive. All right. Marianne or Ann, feel free to interrupt me anytime you have any questions.
Okay, thank you. None in the chat right now.
Okay. And then you identify your family contact and a corporate contact. So then if, again, when you start, they try to, your family hears that something bad happened in the neighborhood and they're trying to call you and no one's answering, or the phone lines are dead because the cell towers are down, or the cell lines are overwhelmed. Sometimes you can get you want to have a long distance contact. Mine's in California, where I'd call my sister and let my sister saying, okay, Kim, when my sons call or my wife calls, tell them not to come home. The house is destroyed. I'll meet them at the YMCA and wait there for me for about 6 hours. And if I'm not there within 6 hours, then I'll meet them at University of Dallas bell tower. So then when my sons call or my wife calls trying to reach me, can't get through, they could believe it or not, get a long distance call out. And then my sister would share that information. Hey, yeah, we talked to Chris. Don't go home. It's not safe. And he'll meet you. And then it's a prearranged locations that we've already talked about at length as a family where we're going to meet up. And then we can all connect up again, because don't think that smartphone is going to be working. It's going to be overwhelmed. Like normally, sometimes even at 5 o'clock traffic, your phones, it's hard to get a line out. And that's just because of the growth we have here in DFW. Then you throw in any kind of emergency, and those cell towers are going to be overwhelmed. They're not going to be working. Okay. Also, another good thing is, what if everything in your home is destroyed? When you go to fill out your insurance plan on what was destroyed and what was lost, do you have receipts of everything you bought? It's, oh yeah, I have a nice folder. Really can't find the folder with all the receipts in it. Or the house burnt down, the receipts burnt. Well, you could go ahead and do a nice inventory sheet and then put it in the cloud if you want. Another easy way to do it is just get your phone out and videotape every room very slowly. Videotape every room. And then if it ever occurred that you would have to then document what you lost, you then have a video record of all your possessions. And then you could sit there and generate and create a nice report for the insurance, where you could describe the furniture, you could describe your electronics, you could describe whatever you're trying to describe, because you have a photo description of it. And then you may not have the receipts, but you'd have a picture of your possessions in your home along with a description.
That's a smart idea. Thanks, Chris. We do have a question that came up. So does that mean that when a disaster hits, it might stop our trains, et cetera, and they too will become roadblocks?
Yes.
They all go dead?
Yes. So the trains may or may not be traveling, but whether the tracks have been damaged, if they're electric, of course they would stop. Or maybe they've been ordered to stop, because if it's terrorism, they would be ordered to stop, possibly. Right. So yeah, trains would more likely, trains, buses, all public transit would probably be unreliable, and better not plan on having it. So then start planning on, well, what am I going to do then? Can I walk? No, can't. It's too far. Can I ride a bike? Don't have a bike. Okay. Can I get a bike? You know, you just start brainstorming with you and your friends and find a way to get from point A to point B in the event of, and then describe it, So
Another question too is there a checklist of like a preparation checklist that you can share that with us that we can share with our attendees?
yes, I'll get that to you. I have one on the screen here coming up, and then I'll also send you a more complete one via email that you can send out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and again, we cover all this stuff in CERT in great detail in the class. So you want to try and learn basic first aid, because again, if you're calling 911 and it's busy, or 911 and no one answers, or they call 911 and they said, okay, we'll get to you next Tuesday. Sure be nice to be able to stop a friend or a loved one from bleeding out right in front of you, or whatever else they're dying from. Sure be nice if you could do something about it, right? And we can teach you those skills, How about if the small fire broke out in your home or apartment? How many of you have actually put out a fire using fire extinguishers? You take CERT, and we're going to teach you to do that. We're going to start a fire. We got to do that because we're out there with all the firemen, but we're going to ask you to put the fire out. So you'll learn how to use your fire extinguishers. We're going to make sure you know how to set up your shelter in place room. Again, that's that airtight room in your home. That's not the tornado room. That's the airtight room for poisonous, where the air is not safe to breathe. Okay. Or you could think of it as you're quarantining yourself. If there's a really bad disease outbreak, something like Ebola in your neighborhood or something like that, or someone comes home into your home and they have Ebola or something deadly, you could actually set them up in a quarantine room, so that way no one else in your family gets sick. So we'd help cover that also. So again, if you want to get ahead of the game, you can go to YouTube and just type in FEMA shelter in place, and there's some nice videos you could watch, and they'll walk you through step by step on how to set up a shelter in place room in your home or apartment. What should be in that room ahead of time? Well, should be some plastic sheeting that's already been cut to fit over the openings, over any windows, any doors, any light fixtures, all the air vents. You want to go ahead and cut it now to size, so that way, because you need to be able to seal it off in about 10 minutes or less. You're going to need duct tape, maybe some extra plastic, some scissors, a little bit of food and water, just because you're going to be nervous, a radio so you know when to come out, a flashlight because it could get dark, and maybe first aid, maybe someone got hurt rushing into the room and bumped heads or something. And then if you have your go bag, you can drag your disaster bag in there with you in case you stayed in there for a couple hours. But again, this is short term. A shelter in place room is really 20 minutes to maybe 2 hours. Okay.
Hey, Chris, Marion had a question about fire extinguishers. I guess the idea of having them for a long time, you don't know how to use them, but they do expire. So will the fire department come out and check your fire extinguisher?
In a business, they will, but in a residence, no. You just need to look at your extinguisher and see if the pressure is within the green band. And if it's in the green band, then that's one indication that it may still be working. Now, what you can do is just go ahead and grab that extinguisher and tilt it up and down, and make sure, do that about twice a year, so the dry chemical inside the extinguisher stays mixed up. Now, if it hasn't been moved in 10 years, you may hear a big clunk when you turn it upside down, and that means all the dry chemicals turned into like a big softball, and it's not going to be working. Okay. Now, then you could go take it and get it recharged. And there's about 17 different companies in Dallas alone where you can go and get it recharged, where they're, drain it, put in fresh chemical and repressurize it. And if it's about, right now they're charging about $17 to recharge an extinguisher, or you buy new ones. If you buy the ones that have a plastic handle, those cannot be recharged. Those, when they stop working, you just throw them away and you buy a new one. If you get one with a metal handle, then the metal handles means that they can open them up and they can recharge them for you. Okay. Now, when you mentioned they expire, that's only in commercial buildings. Do they expire?
Okay.
They never, you don't put a tag on it in a residence. You can keep them for as long as you think they're working. Okay.
Also, what are your thoughts on the blankets, the fire retardant blankets that you see kind of advertised? Is that
Yes.
something you can have in lieu of a fire extinguisher?
You can, if you've been trained on how to use it. Now, a blanket meaning now you have to get closer to the flames to get the blanket on it, as opposed to an extinguisher where you could stand back about 8 to 10 feet from the fire and fight it, versus a blanket. And then you just have to be trained on it, because it takes a different technique to fight it with a blanket than it would be with an extinguisher.
That's true. Okay, well, thank you for saying that.
Okay. All right. Then make sure you're aware when the emergency notices come out. Do you know where to be listening to? Again, your local law enforcement, it could come from them, come from your radio. So how many of you have your radio on all the time? Well, if you do you have music playing, or do you have the news on? Well, you don't like the radio on and the news. It's you gotta rest sometime, right? So that's why you have emergency alert radios, and those are radios that only come on well, they're turned on all the time, but they're silent, and they only come alive when there's an emergency, and then it will tell you what the emergency is and where it's at. So again, you can get an emergency alert radio anywhere from $25 to $50, and you can program it a little bit if you want. So that way, do you want to be woken up in the middle of the night if there's a tornado in your neighborhood? Yeah. You want to be woken up if there's a thunderstorm in North Texas? No, there's thunderstorms in North Texas all the time, but you could set it to any setting you want to constantly for it to wake you up, or even during the daytime to let you know that there's a problem. And it's not just weather. It could be a chemical spill. It could be terrorism. It could be anything. And that's what these emergency alert radios do. And that way you don't need to leave your news on all the time and be listening constantly, So I keep 2 of them in my home. Wherever I volunteer now, I bring one with me and make sure there's one emergency alert radio wherever I'm at, so I don't get surprised that where I volunteer that I wasn't watching the weather because I was busy working and didn't know that there was a line of thunderstorms coming through that had tornado warnings. So I always make sure there's someone listening out for it all the time. Okay. Then the TV should also be a warning for you. Social media, if you trust that or you have it, you spend any time on it, that'd be another way of maybe finding out what might be going on. So all these different ways of finding out something's going on. Okay. Here, this Midland radio here, this would be like an emergency alert radio that you just plug in, and it would stay quiet all the time unless there's an emergency. Then it starts talking to you. You can also set your phone to get alert radios, but that's assuming your phone's working and charged up and it's within distance. Of course, your TV. You can also sign up for something called Dallas Alert. Just go to Dallas, just Google Dallas Alert and click on the link, and you can sign up. And then whenever the city of Dallas wants to get an emergency message to you, they will text it to you right to your phone. But it's something you have to sign up for, or they can email it to you. But if you don't sign up for it, you won't be getting it. Okay. That would be in addition to everything else that you see here through the radio, the phones, TV, things of this sort. Okay, and then that looks like a siren in our neighborhood. What are you going to do if you say, well, I can't hear, when I'm at home, I can't hear the siren go off. I'm going to call in and complain. Remember, those sirens we have in your neighborhood is only meant to be heard by those outdoors. When you're outdoors and you hear the siren, you need to go indoors, turn on your TV or radio and find out what's going on. That's all those sirens are meant to do. Okay. So if you're indoors and you don't hear it, we're assuming you're indoors, and we're assuming that you already have other means to find out what is going on in your city and any emergencies that could be going on. So again, it would mean then you need to start making sure you have an emergency alert radio if you don't want to leave your radio on all the time or your TV. Now, when do the sirens go off? Well, whenever there's a tornado warning that's gone off, or a trained spotter has reported a tornado, or whenever the hail is greater than 1.5 inches, or whenever the winds get above 70 miles an hour, and other outdoor emergencies. Okay. Make sure your pets and services are properly identified. I have to speed up, I guess, here. I'm going a little bit slow here. Also make sure that you have your what locations you're going to keep your pets if you have to leave. And inside your disaster kit, make sure you have everything you need for your pet. And you need to have copies of your vaccination and shot history. So if you don't have them, you need to make copies of it and keep it with your pet in maybe your carrying case. And then good to have photos of you and your pet, so that way if your pet's lost, they can start identifying it quicker. So what's the difference between a disaster kit and a go kit? Well, a disaster kit would be stationary, the one you keep in your home or apartment. A go kit would be something that you're going to keep in your car, or if you have to be on the move, or you're going to have to leave. Okay. Here's one little checklist you can get. It's on the website of Dallas OEM, or just go to ready.gov. And right here, it says circle what you already have. So you should have all of these, the essentials, the useful, and personal. So again, all these things are just planning ahead. You may not be able to get this all taken care of, in one day, 1 week, but make it a goal to make sure that you have this stuff taken care of, even if it takes you 2 or 3 months to accomplish all this. But don't give up on it. Just budget and take time and make it a personal challenge. Okay. Maintaining your plan, you got to practice it. Keep information updated on a regular basis. Change your items in the kits, like I mentioned, every 6 months or so, because your clothing and your food needs to be changed out. Let your outside contact, the relative, the out-of-town relative, possibly, or another outside contact, know where you keep your kit. Because what if something happened to you and they didn't know you had a good trauma bag or a good first aid kit, or had everything you needed is kept in the trunk of your car, or it's kept in the closet at the end of the hallway. They need to know where this stuff is, so if anything happens to you, they can get to it. And they should know what your plan is in the event of a disaster. You have to talk about these things, and maybe even have neighborhood meetings. I've done that in my neighborhood. I live in a subdivision in North Dallas with 720 homes, and I've taught them all CERT. I've taught CERT and offered CERT classes in this neighborhood, and many of them have come. We keep our plan up to date so we can be there for one another if something happens. So again, and it gives you another reason to go get to know your neighbors. So again, you need to make a plan. You got to build your kit, stay informed, take classes, know your neighbors and other tenants, practice and maintain. We try to make all of our training fun, and all this stuff is done in CERT. Again, it's a big social network. If you haven't heard of CERT, I'm surprised, but if you haven't, just go to DallasCERT.com and start learning more about what's going on in your neighborhood. So in addition to in CERT Basic, we teach you disaster preparedness. We teach about hazmat and fire. We teach you disaster medical operations, which is trying to make you an amateur first responder, an amateur EMT. Then we do light search and rescue. In the event you're trying to rescue people from buildings that have collapsed or been damaged, or even trapped in a car or whatever. Then we have advanced classes, the Mastery series. Then we have FEMA has more online classes that you can take and learn more about shelter management. And I mean, their catalog is page after page after page of classes you can take online, and you can take at your leisure. And then when you're tired of Dallas CERT, then go play with Red Cross for a while, and they have even more training that they can do with them. So nowadays there's so many online courses and tutorials you can take, and be constantly learning something every night. Great website to go to, beready.gov. That's a great place to start. If you wanted to contact us, or here's different websites from the CDC to FEMA. The one I'm pushing tonight is DallasCert.com. And hopefully I'll see you in one of my classes coming up in October. Again, it's 3 consecutive Saturdays. The first 2 Saturdays are from 8 to 5. Then the third Saturday is only half a day. And that's when we have a mock disaster. And then we see what you've learned and see how many people you can rescue, because we have maybe 50 or 100 victims, all made up with makeup on them and blood dripping them from them, and underneath different kinds of debris. And you have to find them and rescue them and save their life and set up a field hospital. But we never ask you to do anything more than what you are physically capable of, because people have taken these classes, believe it or not, on crutches, in wheelchairs. We've had people take them that's blind. So don't think just because you're not as physically fit as a Dallas Cowboy that you don't want to take this class. No. Take it anyway. I mean, shoot, as old as I'm a 70-year-old instructor, I can't do half the stuff that I teach anymore. But we can still, the more you learn, the better it is. And there's always someone around that's stronger and younger that can help us. Okay. So with that said, and just go to our Facebook page too, if you want to, facebook.com Dallas CERT, and see more of the activities going on. So that's it for tonight. Questions. I'll stay as long as you like for questions about anything I covered or about anything else disaster related.
Oh, thank you very much, Chris. We're giving you air applause right now. You can't see us, but we're clapping.
Okay.
So much good information. You can continue to type in your questions or comments in the chat if you have any. But before we go to Marion and let her do some wrap up update items, there was one question about, I think, where's the best place to keep your kit, Chris?
If you don't share your car with anyone else, meaning if your car doesn't leave you, you're the only one that takes your car. I leave mine in my van, and it's always with me wherever I go. Now, if you're sharing your car with another family member, then you're going to need one in your house and one in your car. And then we start talking about, well, what if you don't have a car and you take public transit? Well, then you got to start talking about scaling down that go bag to something more like a backpack. And then we try to make it available so you can either wear it or pull it. But a closet, just pick a closet that you can get to quickly, because if you get a knock on the door to evacuate your home and they give you 5 minutes to evacuate, then is not the time to pack. They don't give you time to pack when they tell you to evacuate. They want you to evacuate now. Now, I've had them knock on my door twice and to evacuate.
Oh, wow.
So if it hasn't happened, don't think it won't happen. And I've had to evacuate twice. And of course, teaching this class, we already have our bags. We have 4 big duffel bags, 4 rolling duffel bags called bug out bags, that we want to take everything with us, because At the time, it was natural gas explosions going off. Well, if a natural gas explosion goes off, there's not going to be anything left to pick up. If you see, there's nothing but a big hole in the ground. So we wanted to take as much as we could. So we could fill up a van in 10 minutes or less and be driving away, because 99% of the stuff we wanted to take was already packed.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Wow, yeah, you make some very good points there, and that's you were describing that class, and I was like, oh my goodness, I was already nervous. I'm not even in the class when you say the kind of mock people come out injured and all that stuff. So, anyway, good stuff. If there are any other questions, you can unmute yourself, or once again, you can put things in chat, and we will share Chris's presentation if you request that of us. But Marianne, I'm going to go ahead and let you give everybody some updates, some last minute information on some upcoming workshops.
Can you hear me?
We can.
I was having problems hearing the other people. I've already put the insurance workshop that'll be coming up next on October the 12th. Please look at that information and we will flag you. Insurance at a time of disasters is very important. And for those of you that are looking into home ownership, it's very important that you know exactly what's going to be required and even possibly a cost, because it's all going to be figured into your home ownership cost. And then that's on October 12th. And then our last workshop for the year, and you will be flagged or reminded, is November the 16th. That's on a Thursday also. It will be financial literacy for adults, and we will be having Chase Bank will be presenting. And so then we take a break in December and get the whole schedule ready for the next year. And then we'll be touching base with you guys again. I've also put a lot of information on the chat. If you are someone that would like more information on South Fair and our free services, please just reach out. And thank you so much for joining us this evening. Back to you, Annie. I like to say that. Back to you.
Okay, thank you, Marianne. All right, well, that is it for us. Once again, we appreciate you, Chris. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and all this good information. Everyone get prepared. Like Chris said, it will happen. Not if, just when. Everyone, I want you to enjoy your evening. If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to South Fair at our website, or give us a call or email us. We'll be happy to help you. Thank y'all. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Good night.
Good night.
Thank you.